Nowadays, with so much single parenting, from divorces, adoptions, out of wedlock babies, even test tube babies, same sex marriages.
Relationships have gotten so complicated, Vicki. With marriages today, you've got half brothers on one side and half sisters the other way, and you've got
And
step
step one.
parents and step grandparents, and you get gifts at Christmas from 4 different sources. I mean, it's gotten crazy, but that's how the culture is these days.
So, is it important for a child to have both a mom and a dad? Well, many think that they'll do fine on their own, and of course, it is better to have one parent than to have no parent. But studies have been done to show that a mom is really important in raising the child.
Sure,
but
everybody knows that.
Yeah, but what about the dad? I mean,
Right.
so we're going to be talking about father absenteeism and how that actually affects a child's brain.
Right. It actually has physical changes. You see changes in the prefrontal cortex that are physiological and anatomical. So, with all this information we have on epigenetics now, we know that our DNA is regulated by our environment more than it is by our genes.
So it might be true that a child misbehaves when the parents are, say, separated or divorced, and the father's not in the picture.
Right.
But a lot of this behavior and these problems with it are physiological, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just from the emotion.
It changes the brain. When you do a functional MRI or a SPECT scan, you can see changes that correlate that are anatomical changes in what's happening. So we've got something here that's really important that we need to pay attention to. And there was a study that was done out of the Research Institute for McGill University, and it was published in a journal called Cerebral Cortex in December of 2013. And what they did is they looked at mice, Vicki, and they looked at mice that have relationships. It's amazing how California mice actually are monogamous and they parent together. And we didn't know
Well,
that.
I think geese do that too.
I think a lot of animals do that.
Maybe better than we do.
Well, there are so many people who think that animals don't have emotions and don't have any spirit, and I'm just thinking, our cat certainly is very responsive to us and has a lot of emotions, and I'd like to think she's just like us.
And so do my horses.
Oh, sure. And you've had dogs before, and so have I. There's a lot going on there. So maybe this correlation that we have is a pretty good one, because you can follow the lifespan of a mouse over a few weeks as opposed to having to follow children over a period of years to get an outcome study like this. So in this study, what they did is they looked to see how the parenting went if the father was around or the father wasn't around.
Well, we all know that it's important to have a father for a role model.
Oh, for sure.
And not just for boys, but also for girls. And I think it helps girls in choosing a husband.
Oh, sure, just like it does boys in choosing a wife. A lot of the time, what we say is, if you want to know what the father is like, or what the son is going to be like, look at his father. Of course, to say the same thing for the woman. So both parents are important.
So it wasn't your fault.
No, it wasn't all my fault. That's right. Just some of it. That's right. And then it's hard to predict because, with you have several kids, which we do. We have 5. They all turn out different, and for the reasons that a lot of the time you just can't figure out.
Well, too, if you think about a child that's been brought up in say with an abusive father, it doesn't mean that the child is going to turn out to be abusive themselves.
Yeah, but it's a role model.
But most abusive children, most abusive people were abused at some time when they were younger.
Right.
And also, many times with a girl, because I have a friend like this. Her father was abusive to her, and she always was finding men that would beat her up.
Yeah, well, she was in a comfort zone.
And
It
she
sounds
loved her
weird.
dad.
Yeah, well, I mean, kids love their parents. They may not like them, and with 25% of families having physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, it's substantial. And of course, do you know any family that's not dysfunctional in some way? I mean, they're all like that.
They would probably be dysfunctional if they weren't dysfunctional.
Well, yeah, considering what happens. And of course, what I see in my office a lot of the time is people are coming in with these old habits. Like they have to be perfect. because the mother and father made sure that they got good grades in school and everything they did was exactly right because it was like they were a reflection on them.
Well, I think another thing that's really important is not to talk bad about the other spouse, even if you feel like you're going to bite your tongue until it bleeds, because your child, in order for them to grow up to be stable human beings, they need to have good feelings about both of their parents. And so if you're going to be fighting in front of them or putting the other spouse down,
Yeah, do it privately.
especially if it's because of a divorce. Many times this happens,
Right.
and the child doesn't want to hear it, and it's just upsetting. It puts them in a really awkward position.
Exactly.
The other thing that came out in the study was about girls. What did it show about girls?
Well, girls are a lot more sensitive than boys were in a lot of ways, and more prone to be addicted to things like amphetamines. So you can't stress how important it is to have a father and a mother that are well balanced. And maybe that's why we have grandparents, because grandparents are different. Grandparents are really there to accept and love you because it's easier for them because you're only there for a few hours at a time or a few days at a time. It weighs heavily on a mom and a dad who are working and having to take care of a whole family of kids and to make it all turn out like it should with a lot of patience.
The other thing I was thinking of here is when there is a divorce, and so the father isn't around all the time, but maybe he's around on the weekend or every other weekend, something like that. Frequently what happens, and you hear mothers complain about this, is, oh, well, he gets to take them for all the fun things, and I have them to discipline and and so everything's always fun with the dad and not with me and poor
Well,
me.
it really depends on the relationship. If the relationship is good between a father and a mother, then the relationship is likely to be very good with the children as well.
Yeah, but of course what we're talking about is father absenteeism.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of reasons for fathers being absent.
Well, 50% of marriages fail. So when we're looking at this business of parenting, it's a very serious thing, and we do the best that we can. And if we're having problems, because the kids are so important and their development is so much related to how we raise them, maybe getting some counseling is a good idea, even family counseling, to make sure you're giving your child the best chance to be a well